I'm Tara Baker, and I love digging for fossils. It's like a treasure hunt every single time. So when I travel, I like to add on little trips to go look for fossils. I have put together a little slideshow here for you to see what kind of tools I use to find those fossils and also some really awesome museums. I hope you enjoy.
Hi, my name is Tara Baker and I am a fossil fanatic. I love collecting my own fossils and look for them wherever I go. And if I can't find fossils, I love to visit museums that have their own prehistoric treasures. In this talk, I want to share with you the tools I use to find fossil sites and museums on my vacations. Before we get into how to find those fossils, I want to make sure you have some idea whether you can collect in some certain spots or not. First, collecting any vertebrate material is usually off limits. That means bones. If you're collecting on any public land and you find bones, leave them alone and contact the local rangers. There are exceptions to the vertebrate rules. For instance, if you're on private land and you have the owner's permission, you can take vertebrate materials home. Also, here in Oregon, if you find fossilized bone on the coast, you can take it. And finally, some fish bone and shark teeth are some of the things you can take home with you. When collecting, it's best to only do surface collecting in a new place. Don't dig. And if you are in a national park, leave all fossils and rocks alone. It's illegal to remove any materials from a national park. If you aren't sure if the land is public or private, don't collect. If you have to open a gate or climb a fence, turn back. Now let's talk about some of the tools I use to find fossil sites and museums in places I visit for vacation. The first and best way to find a dig site is to contact the local paleontology clubs. Most larger metropolitan areas have these clubs for groups and their groups of citizen scientists. Before a recent trip to Austin, I emailed a member of the Paleontology Club of Austin there. He was fantastic and gave me tons of information like GPS coordinates, pictures of the typical fossil types in the area, even advice on where to park. Local paleontology clubs are a great resource. And if I can't find a paleontology group with local know-how, I just turn to the internet. I start with a general search for fossils in the area I plan to visit. In September, I made a trip back to the Midwest to visit my family. I typed Fossils Illinois into a search engine. The very first resource is a pamphlet from the Illinois State Geological Survey entitled Where to Look for Fossils. It had some good but very general information about locations. What I learned here was that most fossils in Illinois would be invertebrates from a time when Illinois was covered by a great inland sea. With this general information, I now went to a great internet tool. It's called fossilspot.com. This site has many fossil sites listed in the United States and Canada. The information is organized first by state. Once in the state you're interested in, here in Illinois, I was able to look through the sites now organized by city and county. Fossil Spot is great because it sometimes has very detailed directions to the site, though this is not always the case. You also get a good idea of what kinds of fossils you'll be looking for at a specific site. Plants, snails, shells, fish, you name it. Another good website I use is Fossil Forum. This is a place where amateur paleontologists discuss all kinds of information about dig sites, but also about fossil prep, equipment, regulations, and more. So before heading to Illinois, I did a general search on Fossil Forum for Western Illinois, and I got some great hits. I found some great information at Fossil Forum about a very specific site that was only about an hour away from where I was staying. There was detailed information about the location, including a map. I love maps. The poster also provided pictures of his recent fossil finds, so I knew exactly what to look for. From the map posted on the Fossil Forum, I was able to find directions using Google Maps. It looked like an easy drive and only a bit more than an hour away. Before I left, I wanted to know as much about the site as I could. It was a road cut along a rural highway. With Google Earth's Street View function, I was able to see exactly what the hillside looked like, if it was accessible for me, and also where to park safely. With the site chosen and checked out, I was able to pack up and go on my way. This site in Illinois was an exposed rocky ledge of multiple layers of limestone. Weather had been eroding it and breaking chunks of rock off onto a hillside. I didn't need any tools except for gloves. And I wish I had remembered some bug spray. In the shadow of the rock, the Midwest mosquitoes are pests. Living in Oregon, I had forgotten all about that. I found many fossils, mostly marine invertebrates, like brachiopods and gastropods, in the rocks. In all, I only spent about 2 hours at the site, but came away with some beautiful specimens. When you are flying on vacation, it can be really tricky to get those fossils home and carry on. Some advice on how to get your fossils home from vacation: ship them in flat rate shipping boxes. It cost me just a little bit less than $15 to ship home 15 pounds of rocks. In a normal box, I would have had to pay more than $50. I had read somewhere that packages addressed to grandma were treated a little bit better than normal. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like it worked in this case. My fossils made it home, but it looks like they had a very bumpy ride. I want to identify my fossils so I can put them in my collection. When I'm getting them outside of Oregon, I need help to do that. So I turn to publications like this one written by the Illinois Department of Natural Resources. I'm also lucky enough to be a member of a paleontology club called NARG that has experts available in plants, marine invertebrates, arachnids, and mammals. If you're looking for help to identify your collected fossils, reach out to your local paleontology group. From my experience, they will be very happy to help. When on vacation, I don't just go looking for fossils on the ground, I also like to see them at museums. I grew up in the Midwest, so I have had the chance to visit many there. To find a new one, on my last trip to Illinois, I went back to the internet and did a general search: Illinois Paleontology Museum. The Burpee Museum of Natural History came right up. I planned a trip there to visit. The Burpee is in Rochester, Illinois, and only about 2 hours away from my family's home, so I was able to talk my mom and my grandma into going with me. We made a whole day of it. The Burpee is housed in a facility amongst several old mansions. It's pretty cool. The star of the Burpee Museum is Jane, a juvenile Tyrannosaurus rex. She was discovered in 2001 by amateur paleontologists working with the Burpee Museum in the Hell Creek Formation of Montana. She is the most complete and most preserved juvenile T-Rex anywhere on display. She was awesome. Burpee also has another really cool fossil, and that is of a subadult Triceratops named Homer. Homer was also discovered by amateur paleontologists at the Hell Creek Formation in Montana in 2005. He's the most complete Triceratops found in that location. Fossil prep work was done at the Burpee and finished in 2012. It's really neat that they've been able to do all of their own discoveries and preparations. Here's Homer. He's a gorgeous younger Triceratops. His skeleton was found with fossilized bones from many other Triceratops in a bone bed. That means that there was a bunch of skeletons all in one place. This was the first type of bone bed for Triceratops ever found, and it indicates that Triceratops lived in social groups. A wall of skulls from relatives of the Triceratops, called ceratopsians, faces Homer. It's cool to compare the differences in horns and frills on these 9 skulls. Burpee also has some great exhibits showing Illinois paleontology. A second museum in Illinois I was able to visit was the Frixell Geology Museum at Augustana College. This campus is in Rock Island, Illinois, and only 15 minutes away from my family home. A star at the Frixell Museum is a Crylosaurus, found in Antarctica by an Augustana geology professor. It's surrounded with displays showing more information about the Antarctic expedition. The main hall in the Frixell Museum is filled primarily with fossils from the Midwest, though there are fossils from around the world there as well. They have a large collection of invertebrates organized beautifully so that Augustana geology students can see excellent examples of iconic species side by side. This is really informative. They also have a collection of glowing rocks you can see behind a dark curtain if you're interested in non-fossil rocks. I've used the search tools I've described to collect fantastic trilobites from black shale in eastern Idaho. My daughter and I were on a drive to the Midwest, and I talked her into stopping at the hillside, but for only about an hour and a half. In September, my husband and I were driving home after dropping our son off at college in Southern California. After doing some research before I left, I was able to find and collect a Cambrian sponge-like species from southeastern California in the White Mountains. The Archaeocyathra made up the first wreaths and make up the oldest limestone beds that we have. They are very cool underneath the microscope. I most recently visited Austin, Texas, as I told you before, for a very short vacation, and I was able to take a bit of time to collect echinoderms, gastropods, and ammonite pieces. Again, I did my research ahead of time and was able to sneak away for a few hours for fossil collecting. So in conclusion, do your research before you go. The more the better, and faster you'll be able to collect. Have the correct tools for the rock type, and think about how you're going to get your treasures home. Some locations will not have accessible fossils, so in those places, look into museums where you can get your natural history fix. Bottom line, you can add a little fossil thrill to any vacation if you do your homework ahead of time. So good hunting. Thanks for watching.